This is a story about a Chabad house in Berkeley, California. It's called Chabad of the East Bay. And they have been there's a couple, and their name is Yehuda and Miriam Ferris. The wife has an alias named Marjorie Ferris when she wants to buy $1 million properties and she doesn't want the immediate community to know. They've been in Berkeley 45 years. They still can't get a minion in 45 years in the same town. They're trying to kill me, and I'm not just making up stories, and I'm not crazy. The evidence is clear. You, if you were to follow the evidence that I'm presenting in this video, it's all in the court file, then you would be convinced. But people are busy nowadays. They don't have a lot of time to look into things. But I just want to tell you that I had a brother who passed away. It'll be 6 years this January, right? Now, he worked for this couple. They're part of Chabad Lubavitch. They're actually born Reform, so both their parents were Reformed, so technically they weren't born Jewish. Perhaps they converted, I don't know. I don't have any evidence one way or the other. Now, the other thing is that it's a well-known fact in the very small Jewish community in Berkeley, which is really one synagogue, Beth Israel, which is modern Orthodox, that Mrs. Ferris, born of a Reformed mother and a Reformed father, she inherited a very large real estate empire about 15, 20 years ago in the tens of millions of dollars. I have evidence that they recently purchased a $1.1 million mansion in Massachusetts. I can't produce the photographs on this video, but I have on other videos. They bought a $2 million storefront in the 1710 University Avenue in Berkeley. They were hustling people for money, but they actually had bought the property before they claimed to have. If you check the real estate records, they kept begging for money, but they had already bought the house, the property that nobody attends their services at. And then they bought another house down the street for another 1.9 million. I think it's like Ellsworth and Channing. You can see the house with the big mezuzah on it. And then my brother's house is 2 blocks away over at 1810 Grant Street, 2 blocks from their latest $2 million property acquisition for their synagogue that nobody attends. And here's the deal. Why do I know that they're trying to kill me? Based on their actions, based on the evidence. Because my brother, who passed away 6 years ago, Levi Yochanan Abalafia, we come from 7 generations of rabbis in Israel. This couple, they may not even be Jewish, right? So they don't act very Jewish. So my brother worked for them. He fixed up properties, and they got tons of properties, right? So it's just a match, right? He also attended attended Sabbath services at their synagogue. They could never get 10 people, but he still went because he felt sorry for him. So he worked for them for years. Decades, right? He lived with this Filipino woman, also never converted, also not Jewish. He had 2 Filipino daughters, who never converted to Judaism. He left the house and separated from the woman in 2011. His ex-girlfriend and one of his daughters, who's a black belt judo expert, they both are, beat him to a pulp. I have photographs of horrible gouges and welts on his arms and on his legs, especially on his neck, probably caused an infection. And then he went to Santa Rita prison for 5 days because a policeman who works as a basketball coach at Berkeley High, where the 2 daughters were high student administrators, like presidents of student affairs, they know this policeman. And he came over 3 days after they had a little argument and arrested him, supposedly based on video evidence that he pulled his daughter's hair, who is a black belt judo expert. And she was 17 and a half, so technically she's a minor. However, the photographs taken by the police that I have possession of and have published on other tapes, other videos, he's got this massive, colossal trauma wounds to his neck. He could have bled to death. And when I read the police report that I found crumpled up in my brother's glove compartment, it said that there was no video evidence of anything. The only thing on the video was my brother saying he lost his keys. So, but the police report said that his ex-girlfriend, Nancy Salgado, she said, I stepped on him and I kicked him and I beat him and I punched him. And my daughter, who's a black belt judo expert, also assaulted him. And then he came down with cancer 3 years later in his liver while they were beating him up in his liver. Well, the medical literature says if you get a beating to your liver, it can trigger cancer. So he had left the house. He had to plead no contest just to get out of Santa Rita before he got killed. And then he split up with the woman after like 30 years, left the house. The two daughters were still in contact with him. But then that was 2011. But then in 2014, a doctor told him he had 6 months to live from terminal liver cancer. And from the day of his diagnosis in 2014, when they kept telling him he had 6 months to live every 6 months for 6 years till he died in ICU in 2020, he never saw his daughters once in the whole time. And they admitted that in court. If you don't believe me, you can look it up in the record. If you have time, it's case number RP 221-20163 in Alameda County Superior Court, Probate Division. There was a hearing on August 19th, and there's a transcript of that hearing. And on page 15 of the transcript, you can get this. It's in the public record. It's in the Register of Actions. Their attorney gets up there and says, I swear under penalty of perjury that I'm speaking for his two daughters, and they never had any contact with him from 2014 when he was diagnosed until the day he died. And we don't need their confession because we already know. Just like we don't need the Nuremberg trials because we already know that they murdered 6 million. But if you want to look, you can see. Flora Ziprin, she works at UCLA. I don't know why they even employ her after she didn't speak to her own father in 6 years of cancer. And she's supposed to be a medical professional, and so is the other one, Maxine Ziprin. I have letters that I've published on YouTube from her to my brother saying, well, I hope you don't die with regret, but I won't be seeing you before you die. This is just how I have to go about it. I mean, savage barbarians, just savage barbarians, right? First, they attacked him and assaulted him and put big, huge 10-inch gouges in his neck that could have killed him. And then, when he gets cancer 3 years later, they never talked to him for the whole 6 years before he died. That is murder. And if you don't believe me, why don't you call up any oncologist doctor? You know what an oncologist is? Most people do. Call up an oncologist doctor, call up an oncologist nurse, and say, well, what do you think about this? A man came down with terminal liver cancer. They kept giving him 6 months to live every 6 months for 6 years, along with a lot of high-tech treatments. And his own two daughters, who he raised from birth, never spoke to him or called him or contacted him. Did their absence in his life have anything to do with his death from terminal cancer? Every single doctor on the face of the earth and the Milky Way will tell you, yes, it had everything to do with it, because hospital people know just the type of family member that'll do such a thing. They're about 3% of family members, but they're disgusting and they're filthy, and hospital people hate them. So, moving right along, he left the house, 1810 Grant Street, right over by Ohlone Park, on a quiet cul-de-sac. Easily sells for $2 million. It used to be listed at 1.7 million. All right. My brother owned half of it. He paid the mortgage on it for 30 years. His girlfriend cut hair twice a week. Who paid the mortgage? Figure that one out. Even a blind person could tell you the answer to that one. Now, the other thing that happened was, technically the girlfriend owned half of the house. Well, when they framed him up and he went to jail in 2011, when he got out, she was living at the house and she wouldn't let him in. So then when he got cancer, she still wouldn't let him in. So finally, he got diagnosed with 6 months to live in 2014. Well, in 2019, 5 years later, after 90% of people with this kind of cancer die in 6 months, 5 years later, he goes to court and he says, I want to die in my own house. And the court says, lady, get the hell out. He owns half the house. He's going to die in his own house. You better pack your bags and leave. So he gets back possession of the property. And this is my only brother, right? I'm a first responder for many years. So I worked very closely with my brother from 2014 until he died in 2020. I was watching him like white on rice, making sure he got his medications 18 times a day, sitting at the hospital whenever he went in on an emergency basis in Berkeley. He died in ICU. They tried to put him in a nursing home after every discharge, but I wouldn't let him because I said, I'm watching him carefully at home, and I worked at that hospital, so they knew me and they trusted me. Otherwise, people that sick, they'll put him in a nursing home in a minute because they don't want the liability. Where was his daughters the whole 6 years that he was dying? Nowhere to be found. We didn't even have food. He didn't have food to eat, but I had to watch him as a bedside care to check his blood pressure every few hours, to check his temperature, to check his heart rate in case he wasn't turning blue at 4 in the morning. I called the ambulance, take him to the hospital 7 times. He was in a liver coma and he was hospitalized 150 days, over 7 different hospitalizations. His daughters were nowhere to be found. They were too busy making $100,000 a year as occupational therapists to be bothered with their own dying father. So what did he do? He wrote a trust. And then when he passed away in ICU, I tried to give him half my liver. He was on the liver transplant waiting list for like a year and a half. And his daughters let him die in cold blood because they didn't try to donate a piece of their liver. They could have been screened. He'd be alive today. They could have gone on Facebook with their 10,000 Facebook friends and said, my father needs a liver. Do you have anybody with the same blood type A positive, that would screen themselves so that the high-tech, world-renowned UCSF liver surgeons, the best in the world, would cut out a piece of somebody's liver and give it to him so he might live? No, they didn't bother to ask anyone. They didn't even bother to call him up. Okay? So I tried to donate half of my liver and they declined. They said no. After I was screened, they said no. I was searching for other liver donors, and then they took him off the list. And he died thanks to his daughters never calling him, speaking to him, and never donating a piece of their liver. Okay? This is just the beginning of this murder story. But I only have 5 minutes, so I'm going to try to make this quick, cover a lot of ground. So, he passed away in ICU in January of 2020, just months before the COVID pandemic exploded. So he made this guy that I told you about in the beginning of the video, Yehuda Ferris of Chabad Lubavitch, an ultra-Orthodox Hasidic Jew, supposedly. He wears a black coat and long sideburns, but he's a scam artist, just like his wife. They're land-grabbing hustlers, and I'll tell you why. Just check the file in case number RP221-20163. Get any lawyer to check that file, and they will tell you everything I'm saying is true. So they give us a trust after he died, and it says, my sisters and I, we're all in our 60s, we're poor, I'm a first responder and a phlebotomist. My sisters are facing retirement without a penny to their name. They have no education, they have no marketable skills, they have no professions, no property, no savings, no children, no grandchildren. Well, yeah, one daughter has a child in New York, but they are hillbilly poor. They are dirt poor. They have nothing. They live hand to mouth, just like me. So our brother told us for 5 years that he's given us a piece of his house. So he died. They give us a trust, and the trust says we get $30,000 each. And if we don't get it in 9 months of his death, that was 6 years ago, that it would become an interest-bearing lien on his half of the house, the $2 million house, which is 2 blocks from the Trustee Synagogue on University Avenue. We would get $30,000 each, and if we don't get it in 9 months, it becomes a 10% interest a year lien on his half of the property until paid in full, right? Meantime, I find $70,000 in cashier's checks. My brother had this savings he never told anyone about. He took all his money out of the bank 3 weeks before he died, put them in cashier's checks, made out to himself, and I found him in a garbage can in his walk-in closet and nearly threw him in the garbage. Like a colossal idiot, because I got the trust that said $30,000 each, and COVID was about to destroy the world. I thought we were all gonna die. Everybody did. So like an idiot, my sisters and I gave the checks to the trustee and his attorney. I have photographs of them. I filed them in the court. 6 years later, we never got the lien on the property. We never got a penny. We got 3 checks for $800. He took all the $70,000 in checks I gave him, and he sold the property out of the trust for $82,000. And guess who he sold it to? My brother's daughters. But there's a problem there, because my brother's trust says they didn't see me in 6 years, so I'll give them each 25% of my half, but they can't have his whole half. But the trustee's wife wants to sell the property, so she sold it to him for $82,000 and gave his attorney, who wrote the trust, $60,000 in attorney's fees. Then he tried to evict me in the middle of the pandemic. A year and a half before the pandemic was ended, he throws an eviction action against me. I had to spend my little $20,000 pension that I worked for 30 years, so I'd have $2 in my bank account at retirement. I had to spend it on an eviction attorney so I wouldn't die of COVID in the middle of the pandemic. And then I had to leave the house 18 months ago. And then I go to court and sue, and he lies to the judge and says I'm a vexatious litigant, and she believed some lies, so now I'm listed as a vexatious litigant, and now he's trying to get a gag order from the court saying that I shouldn't be able to talk about this to the media or to any rabbis in the whole United States. This guy is trying to kill me, okay? I am the brother of the man who, look up the case number, RP221-20163 in Alameda County Superior Court. This is a murder story. Not only did they steal our inheritance, they never gave us a lien, they never put a lien on the property, they never gave us our $30,000. And who did they sell the property to? The very people that murdered my brother by their absence. And he had big stab wounds in his neck from the daughters attacking him. And now one of the daughters just bought $1 million house with her Jewish husband in Seattle. and they got a 5-bedroom, 4-bathroom mansion that they bought for $1.1 million, and my sisters don't have a pot to piss in, and neither do I. Thanks to Rabbi Yehuda Ferris of Chabad of the East Bay. Do not ever donate a single penny to this man. He is a hustler, he is a land grabber, and he is a dangerous individual, and you should stay away from him, and he should be arrested, in my opinion. But nobody wants to touch him because, oh, we don't want to be accused of being anti-Semitic. That, my friend, is the whole story, and there's more.